Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is a Red Pill Podcast 201, and we're now officially in the Year of the Snake. And I hope you all enjoyed my Year of the Snake Decoded that I released just a couple days ago. Now, as promised last week, in this new Red Pill Podcast today, I'll be dedicating it to a decode of XRP for the year of 2025 in the short term as an immediate follow-up to that Year of the Snake presentation. So grab a notebook and a pen and get ready to take some notes, and let's just jump straight into this one. But before we get started, make sure to get comfortable, get relaxed, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little bit earlier, or if it's a little bit later in the day, maybe a glass of wine or a beer or any beverage of your choice. But most important is to get comfortable and relaxed. We have a lot to cover today, and want to mention this straight away. We're seeing a pattern here lately in the crypto market where we've been getting these very bearish weekends. And here we are yet again, just like last week, a very bearish Saturday-Sunday combo. And we also saw that bleed into Monday last week. Of course, we were heading into the FOMC meeting, which is now come and gone. We had that last Wednesday on the actual Chinese Lunar New Year when Fed Chair Powell hypnotized the markets, and it did very much feel like the pricing in was leading into that particular meeting, and it was concluded by the first couple days of the week. And then afterwards, we did have a pretty volatile weekly close for the traditional markets, and now we're seeing, while crypto trades alone again for the weekend, lots of red. Lots of blood in the streets. So this is a very precarious setup, and it's very interesting, and I could sense a lot of tension and a lot of confusion right now in these markets. And I can't blame you, because with what we've been watching unfold over the past month, pretty much past 2 months now, especially with that event in LA last month, it's just been nonstop. I mean, every day I feel like I check out X and there's a new plane crash that's happened, or just something like really wacky going on. So lots of chaos, lots of confusion, lots of events. And this is kind of like the time where markets tend to make the most extreme pivots. Now, of course, when the markets are down, people feel very scared. There's a lot of fear. When that fear starts to come into your reality, it's typically the moment where markets tend to have reversals. And that's the same way it goes in the other direction. When we're having very greedy, very euphoric markets, it's typically tops. And I don't know about you, but I haven't really been personally feeling any euphoria lately, even while we're at higher prices, specifically for Bitcoin and XRP. Even this 100K Bitcoin milestone is become desensitized to many of us. We're sort of just used to it now, but we go back to October, nobody would have imagined being desensitized to 100K Bitcoin, right? So it's funny how quickly these markets adapt emotionally. And I just wanted to start this off with that today. If you're somebody who's brand new to these markets, I mean, you're kind of stepping in at the beginning of the end. And I've been saying this now for probably like 6 months, but that's not something to discourage you, because we do have more room to go. I believe even from the exoteric, that's proven with all these governments getting excited about crypto, the US getting excited about crypto, lots of change going on in the world's applications of crypto and blockchain technology. I mean, it's just inevitable, right? So let's get straight into this XRP decode, build a foundation for today, and then we'll add more nuggets of wisdom as we move through today's podcast. Now, XRP started trading at a fraction of a penny in 2013, which just so happens to be the last year of the snake. So keep this in mind for today's decode, because XRP is technically born in the year of the snake. Now, again, as a technology, and ties back to Ryan Fougere and the people at the very early days of Ripple when it was called OpenCoin. And we already decoded a lot of that stuff, and many of you have probably learned about already. So we're just talking about when XRP started trading on the open market, when it was given value for the first time, right? That was during the year of the snake. And it was the last year of the snake. So just think about that. That is when XRP was born. Just like whatever year you're born in, you associate with as your Chinese lunar return, I guess you could call it. It's kind of an interesting way to look at it. But with that fact out of the way very early on, I believe that would allow you to see how 2025, this year of the snake, is definitely significant for XRP. Also, if you've yet to watch that Year of the Snake Decoded that I just released, I highly suggest you do, because everything I'm about to review in today's XRP Decode is utilizing that Year of the Snake Decoded. So it's all relevant and quite important, I believe. And by watching that Snake Year Decode, it'll bring even more value to this presentation here. So if you've already started this one, you kind of just want to enjoy what you've already started, definitely go back and watch the Year of the Snake if you haven't already. But for those of you that have completed it and have watched it, I'm sure you can vouch for what I'm saying here, because it provided a stable foundation. And if there's anything that's confusing that's going to come up during today's presentation here, it'll likely be clarified in that Year of the Snake Decoded. Now, the logo of XRP, as you all know, is the X. You could see it right here. It's a circle with an X in it. And I'm going to be introducing something that I don't talk about too often, but it's the capital letter cipher. And you can see the cipher written below, where in lowercase a through Z is 1 through 26, and then it restarts with a capital A at 27 through 52. Very interesting cipher. It's something that I have used a lot for decoding people's names. Again, I don't do personalized decodes, but it's an additional layer that you can utilize if you wanted to decode yourself. Now, getting back to this, when we do this capital X, you're going to see that it's 50 in the capital cipher, and 50 also happens to show up in snake, the year that we're in. And this number 50 reduces to 5 when you remove the 0 using the rules of numerology, and X in Chaldean cipher is 5. So we have syncretism immediately with XRP's logo and XRP, as well as the Year of the Snake. It was born in the Year of the Snake. We have that 50 code right there. Snake also giving you the 14, like XRP gives you the 14. Both reduce to 5. Now, if you have my Decoding Mastermind course and went through the included crypto decoding blueprint, then you know that XRP is tied to the mythology of Mercury and Hermes. Mercury, Hermes, they're the same. We're going to use those interchangeably throughout today's decode. And when you type in Hermes, go ahead and press enter here in the Gematria calculator. Then you can do the same thing with Mercury, the same thing with a Ripple, and it'll save all these ciphers down here for you. Also, by the way, very soon I'm hoping to transition away from using this website. I don't have any issue with this website or any beef with the people who've created it, but I am working with a programmer here in our community, a fellow wolf named Chenzo. He is a little bit active in our Discord, but we're going to be collaborating together to make something amazing for the decoding community. So we're working on that behind the scenes, but for now, this is what we have. And anyway, it has enough basic features on this free version for you to be able to do everything that I'm talking about right now. You could head over to gematrinator.com and you'll be able to follow along here. But if you don't want to go over to this website, perfectly fine. You can just watch what I'm doing now. So we're going to see how Mercury and Ripple right there, they both have the 40 in full reduction, and they both have the 86 in the reverse cipher. So they have the matching 40s and the matching 86s in the same cipher. That makes things much more powerful when they're in the same cipher. And also, especially when they're just one word. If you started adding up different words together, 3, 4, 5 words, of course it would be much higher values. But when you start decoding full-blown sentences and stuff like that, it could become kind of convoluted, and it's tough to actually decode what's actually going on. So you always work in the reduction principle, not the additive principle. That's something that I teach often, especially a philosophy that I have inside of my expansion group coaching, the expansion mastermind course that I created, and as well as something that I'm bringing into this new project that I created, Waters Above University. I'm a big proponent for the reductionist principle, not the additive. And in life, when we add too many things and have too many connections and too much, it's very tough to understand what is exactly even working here. It's like people that take 20 different supplements. You don't even know what's helping you then. There's nothing scientific about that approach when you do 20, 30, 40, 50 different things. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people like to have these sorts of regimen, but healing and repair and recovery are always in simplicity, never complexity. So getting back to this, we try to be simple with our decoding system as well, even though we're aware that it's very esoteric and not many people even know about gematria. So what we're doing here is definitely unique, and that's why I want it to be simple so that you could all follow along. And the big point here is that when you have two things matching in multiple ciphers and those ciphers just so happen to have matches in the exact same ciphers, definitely take note of that. It's very powerful. And the mirror of this number 86 is 68, and you're going to see that in Hermes with that 68 tying back to the mirror of Ripple 86. They both have the number 32 as well. You could see the 32 here in Ripple, and you could see the 32 here in Hermes. Now we're cross-referencing ciphers, so it's not as powerful, but I've already given you the ones that are direct matches. So that's a good starting point. And then more is the more connections we have off of the same couple of words, the same couple of concepts, it makes our decode even stronger. You can have more confidence in it. Also, we have the 86, the 68, the 32, and the 23 all reduce to 5. As we were talking about before, X in capitals, it's the 50, that becomes 5, it's 5 in Chaldean, and we have snake giving you the 50, reduce to 5, 14 reduces to 5. So plenty of matches, and one of the key numbers for our year of the snake is 5, so absolutely keep that in mind. Also, the staff of Hermes, also called the caduceus, again covered in my year of the snake decoded, it has these snakes wrapped around the staff, and you're going to see they are creating the X. You have the X over and over and over again. So that X symbolism is hidden within there too, with the two snakes coiling up around the rod. This directly ties to XRP and Hermes. As many of you are aware, XRP is praised for its fast transaction times. So it's known for speed. And guess who else is known for speed? Mercury. Mercury is considered the fastest planet in the solar system. Again, exoterically. Hermes also wears a winged helmet and winged sandals. They're called talaria. I'm not sure if that'll show up here, but you'll get to see a visual in a second. Yeah, Google Images is much better than Brave, by the way, but you'll see it right there. So these are the winged sandals, again, associated with speed, associated with travel. So Mercury is the god of communication and travel. Again, just like you always hear everyone in the XRP community talk about cross-border payments, or they use the term bridge currency. These are terms used for specifically regarding communication between banks and the way the currency travels. Mercury, or Hermes, is written all over XRP. And as you learned in my year of the snake decoded, there's an eagle associated with Hermes or Mercury, and that eagle is always seen with Jupiter. You could see right here, just main Wikipedia page for the mythology of Jupiter, and you're going to see the eagle right next to Jupiter or Zeus. This is Hermes. This is Mercury. It's also why they selected this to be the symbol of the United States of America, and United States of America, since the last cataclysm, is the Garden of Eden. A lot of people want it to be this place in the Middle East, this place they're fighting over called Israel, and that's just a false. That's a false. So false. United States of America, since the last cataclysm, the last reset, which is effectively a time frame where humans can inhabit the above ground and can only live below ground, that is USA. It's the Garden of Eden. So moving on. With this whole system that we're working with today, it's all utilizing Greco-Roman system, and again, also tied back to the US. So whenever you're seeing any symbols cross over, it's because of that. And this is a big reason why I use Greco-Roman mythology in my work, and I prioritize it more than anything when it comes to decoding, because it's the stories that make up the archetype of beings that we are and aspects of the human experience. So Jupiter is not a person. It's not a individual that once walked the earth. It's an aspect or a archetype It is something that you can embody. Pluto or Mercury or Mars, or these are all things that are already within us. They're not planets in outer space. Again, who did this was the same system that gives us our maps, that created our currency system, that gives us our fake calendar. It's all nonsense. So I'm not unhappy with that or angry at that or upset that we've been lied to. It's just, it is what it is. It's here for me to decode, though. And when I decode it, that actually relieves the tension, and that allows me to see it for what it is, and it allows me to be looking at it for its opportunities instead of just pointing fingers and blaming and getting mad and upset about it. That doesn't serve me. But if I can learn how to decode it, which is what we're doing here on this channel, we've been doing here for the past 4 years, it's allowed us to see it for what it is, and that right there is part of the process of becoming free. So we have this eagle symbolism here. Probably heard me talk about this in past decodes as well. And one important thing to mention about Jupiter in mythology is he's sometimes depicted as a serpent, as a snake. And many fables allude to Jupiter being the serpent in the Garden of Eden. What did I just tell you about the Garden of Eden? This is all about Jupiter, right? This is the king of the gods. That's a part of all the systems in our world, where you're looking at Babylonian, Canaanite, ancient Egyptian. They all have their version of what would be the Jupiter character. This is just the most recent one that we're all dealing with. You notice how it's called Jupiter? There's all the languages hidden in the spells. So I'm not even going to go there. With regards to Jupiter being the serpent in the Garden of Eden, we all know the story about the temptation, the tempting of Eve with the forbidden fruit, which from an esoteric perspective, the forbidden fruit, or eating the forbidden fruit, is the spark of consciousness, or what we call enlightenment. It's also symbolically tied to the orgasm, which has to do with procreation and how do we make more people? Well, one man and one female have to unite or they eclipse each other. And that's what creates life. She gets pregnant, birth, etc. Everything comes back to human creation. I feel like I'm kind of giving a masterclass on decoding right now. I hope you all appreciate these little nuggets of wisdom here and there. Bigger point that I'm trying to get to is just this additional layer of Jupiter. And in my crypto decoding blueprint, I do a deep dive into this. But for today's presentation, I just want to quickly point out the ties to Jupiter and XRP and Ripple by the code, which, again, perhaps some of you are aware of, but let's start with Mercury right here, giving us the 103. 103 is actually the 27th prime number, and we get that in Jupiter as well. Remember, father, son, and then in the same cipher as Jupiter, we get that with Ripple. Now, this isn't me saying that Ripple is Jupiter. I'm just showing you the connections here because if anything, it really solidifies what XRP is, or Ripple is symbolic of the most, which is Hermes, Mercury. And Ripple would be the creators of the XRP token, making that father something else that's symbolic. So we know Ripple, water symbolism that comes back to Poseidon, Neptune, so many things to say about that. I don't want to confuse people, but as I mentioned, there's ties to Jupiter and the serpent and the snake, and we're in the year of the snake, which is the same as the year XRP started trading on the open market, 2013, as you can see right here. Year of the water snake. Just like Ripple and their logo and their symbolism is water, right? It's currency, the currents of the sea. Everything ties back to Admiralty Maritime Commerce Law. Now, one other thing about the X symbolism with XRP is the double helix and DNA. And that's a whole other part of the conversation where things are headed with transhumanism leading into the year of 2029, but I'll save that for another time. Now we have snake in Gematria is giving us an 85. The 85, we mirror that and we get 58, and that 58 will also remember the 76 if we were to write it out this way. But anyway, stick to the 85 and the mirror 58. You have XRP giving you 58. We also have Serpent giving you this 32. We also have Ripple giving you this 32, as you can see right there. So the connections here are clear. We have to prioritize any Mercury or Jupiter connections for the astrology applications, and whether you're utilizing tropical or sidereal, keep in mind that Jupiter rules Pisces along with Neptune, as above so below. So I said it to you before, Neptune, Poseidon, water symbolism tied back to ripple, the ripples in the water, right? And the next new moon that we have at the end of this month, right here, February 28th, it'll be a new moon in Pisces, again tied to Jupiter. And the following full moon, which is March 14th, also the total lunar eclipse that starts our lunar cycle, that total lunar eclipse and full moon will be in the sign of Virgo. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And this March lunar eclipse in Virgo also happens to be leading into the next time Mercury stations retrograde on March 15th, just literally 24 hours after the eclipse. You can't have it synchronize any more perfectly than that. Mercury retrograde immediately after the March lunar eclipse, a full moon in Virgo ruled by Mercury. That's pretty big. Now let's get over to the charts over here. More blood in the streets for Bitcoin and crypto. Yeehaw. So we're pulling up the Bitcoin chart for a moment. We're looking at Mercury retrograde time frame. Also, apologies if my charts are taking a little time to load. For some reason, I don't know what's going on with my TradingView application. It's like it feels like all the other websites are working fine, but TradingView in particular has been giving me problems loading charts. So if any of you out there that are using the TradingView app and you have any words of wisdom you want to share with me so that I could fix that problem, I don't think it's my internet connection. I think it's something specifically with the TradingView app. So let me know. Maybe there's like an update I need to do or something. Be really appreciative of your tech wisdom. Now we're getting into the Bitcoin chart with this Mercury retrograde analysis because I just want to point something out, how when we look at the last time Bitcoin was in a lunar cycle, we have this moment right here of May 2021. Bitcoin entering a lunar cycle on this lunar eclipse, and we also have these red boxes are pointing out when Mercury is stationed retrograde. So we had a lunar eclipse and also Mercury retrograde happening simultaneously, just like we do coming up in March this year. And if we look even like about 7 days before this eclipse, Bitcoin was already experiencing a major correction. This candle right here was a total of 14% down, and from open to the absolute bottom was 30% in a single day. So we have a 30% move for Bitcoin down to 30K on the nose. And that was right there into that total lunar eclipse to start our lunar cycle. We also chopped sideways during that Mercury retrograde, but that combo I feel is pretty dangerous. So we want to point that out because there was a 55% correction leading into this eclipse. It's no joke. So on top of that, Bitcoin has a tendency to drop after every time we have Mercury stationed direct again. So you see here, Mercury stations retrograde, Mercury stations direct, we drop down. We had this pretty much happening all last year too. We have this iteration after the red box. Sure, we moved up momentarily, but then we came back down. Here we immediately corrected. Here we immediately corrected. And even recently into the end of the year, we had Saturn retrograde wrapping up around November 15th, I believe. I forgot the exact date. But this combo of having a move down after Mercury retrograde or Mercury stations direct, it's telling me that we have two likely things to occur, one of which will be a pullback into the total lunar eclipse that's coming up. And another thing is if we don't get a pullback into the total lunar eclipse that's coming up, that we will at least have it come after. It's pretty much one or the other. And then Mercury stations direct again on, it's like April 4th, right? It's a very important time frame. I also think right now we have Mars retrograde until like the third week of February, and a lot of people who are following financial astrology are like blaming the market's movement on that right now, which could very well be the case. I haven't taken the time to deep dive too much into Mars retrograde and its effect on the market. I did find one for Saturn retrograde, and I did find one for Mercury retrograde. Of course, I could add in another layer, but I want to try to keep things simple here. All in all, Bitcoin's at 100K right now. So it's like we are moving mostly on the solar and lunar cycles more than anything else. And then we just have these Mercury retrograde analysis a couple times a year to keep track of what's going on there. And we've been adding in the necessary layers to be on top of this while still not getting overcrowded with too much data. So anyways, with that out of the way, we have a clear pattern for Mercury retrograde, which is a decline in price after Mercury stations direct again. We're going to have to see how this one goes, but let's analyze more about what's going on right now to see how this whole move is likely to transpire for March of 2025. I also have to bring up that the February correction that we had, the February 2020 Mercury retrograde, which ended on March 10th, perfectly into the full moon of March, by the way, and then literally the day later, C-19 was declared a pandemic by the WHO, and the market crashed into March 13th, which is the exact date of our upcoming total lunar eclipse. And by the way, Mercury will be in the sign of Aries when it stations retrograde on March 15th. And Aries, ruled by Mars, the god of war. We also have Mars is where we get the name for March, the month that we're talking about. Yeah, it's when the Romans would start their war season, specifically during the time when the sun is entering the sign of Pisces in sidereal astrology and moving into the vernal equinox, which is very important to know. It's the date of March 15th when the sun is moving into the sign of Pisces in the actual sky, utilizing sidereal astrology. And that's literally the day Mercury stations retrograde for the first time this year. So we have this father-son duo of Pisces ruled by Jupiter and then Mercury retrograde. Also, Mercury retrograde in the sign of Mars. So this is feeling very fiery, very explosive, very confusing, very violent, probably not very fun for those who aren't emotionally prepared for that particular time frame. Just like we could say the same case for March of 2020 before we went into a multi-year lockdown. It's pretty extreme, right? Also, our first total lunar eclipse we'll be having since November 2022, right over here. So if I was to take all this noise off and see for yourself, this correction we had of November 2022, that was on a total lunar eclipse, and it was the bottom of the Bitcoin bear market. It was also the eclipse when FTX crashed and all that stuff happened with Sam Bankman-Fried, etc. Now, although it might not seem like it, but the quote-unquote good news about everything that I'm talking about right now is if Bitcoin or the crypto market as a whole would turn out like these couple of examples, and I'll even include another, which was Bitcoin during March of 2017, which you've heard me bring up a couple of times recently. Again, apologies for the loading here, but we have right here the March move of 2017. It was a pretty quick, sharp, violent correction, and it happened within the month of March. We topped and bottomed in the same time frame. So we had a bull trap. We know it's a bull trap because we made a slightly higher high, but did not continue up into price discovery. And then we had this major drawdown, which was a bear trap. Trapped the bears because we did not enter a bear market. We popped up V-shaped recovery and kept it moving. All of these examples that I've gone through with you guys just now were rip the band-aid off moments during March of 2023 as well. This move right here. You see that V-shaped recovery? That was into March 10th. We had this happen because of the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. Bitcoin literally recovered 3 trading days later. And after the March 2020 correction, Bitcoin was back up to the yearly open, so where we were trading out on January 1st of 2020 in a little over 3 weeks from the bottom of this crash. Fully recovered from the C19 crash in exactly 2 months. In 2021, when we had this move over here for the start of our lunar cycle in May, from May 19th to July, pivot was 2 months. And 2017, during that March shakeout that was right over here, when we take from the micro top that was formed on March 3rd until the recovery, it took exactly 2 months. And then from the lows of the correction on the March 25th date until recovery, it was about 2 weeks. And that was, by the way, the lowest Bitcoin went for the rest of the cycle, and actually the lowest Bitcoin ever traded forever till today. Just like in the 2020 March crash. That's the lowest that Bitcoin has ever traded till today. And also the same thing with the March 10th correction of 2023. That was the lowest Bitcoin traded since that moment. So if we do get a major correction that happens swiftly, especially if it pushes Bitcoin down to like the 21 weekly moving average and it cannot hold on the 21 weekly for the weekly close whenever that was to occur, and if this happens during the month of March specifically, then we could very well be bottomed for the cycle shortly after this confirmation and continue higher into August, as I've been saying for over a year now with my double peak cycle theory. Big reason I want to keep putting emphasis on that is because it's not news to everyone here. Some people feel like I'm just now talking about August, but I have YouTube videos where I've been talking about August and the significance of Bitcoin heading into the second lunar eclipse of our lunar cycle, just like we did back in 2021, where we had a double top. So we're talking about this crazy correction. We were sideways for 2 months. We recovered out of it. And then when we hit this double top, it was right before our second lunar eclipse of the lunar cycle. And that aligns with September 7th of later this year. I put a lot of emphasis on this also in my Year of the Snake Decoded. And for those of you that got my crypto decoding blueprint a while ago, you know my thoughts on August, September of 2025. It's not new. It's not, what do people call it? Pushing the goalpost or whatever. It's not. It's been information I've been sharing here for so long. And here we are, we're watching Bitcoin hit this 100K level, and there's a ton of, psychological resistance and a lot of people getting shaken out. And also simultaneously, a lot of people getting drawn to the market now. Now everyone wants to be a crypto investor, but nobody wanted to be back here, right? It just is what it is. So it's the same people probably that are just getting in now that are not aware of the holistic investment thesis. But for those of you that have been here for a while, if you ever see stuff like that come up, do your best to share your wisdom with them in a comment reply. It's great when we collaborate with each other and we help each other out. Now, another thing to mention about Bitcoin and this crypto market at this time is Bitcoin dominance. I feel like we do need to get back to this, especially while we have Bitcoin. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's talk about Bitcoin CME chart, because I'm getting a lot of questions lately about this Bitcoin CME gap that you could see right there, big hole in this market. When I turn on the drawings, you're going to see I have this mapped out where it's right around 78K Bitcoin on the CME chart, right? Well, if Bitcoin was to make it up to the 120K level, which would be right where my cursor is, and we corrected down to 77K, or if we filled this CME gap, that would be a 35% total correction. And when we look back at what Bitcoin did last year, that was about a 33% correction. So we know it's not impossible for Bitcoin to experience a 30% mid-cycle correction in the midst of a bull run, because it's what we did last year. 33% correction on both the CME and the spot chart. So we could see Bitcoin trading back into the 70K zone, or the upper 70K zone, during 2025, absolutely. And unless you're brand new to crypto, many of you will remember that last year, after Bitcoin topped in March, we had 8 months of sideways before we broke out of that 72K major resistance. We explosively broke through that in early November. Well, something really interesting that I need to point out with the weekly chart this is going to be very important, so please take a note on this. We're pulling up Bitcoin. We're going to go to the weekly. We're going to turn off all of our indicators. And I want to point something out that I think is going to be fascinating. It's going to provide you with a ton of value. We're turning on our moving averages, and all we want for right now is the 55 simple moving average, this white moving average. And I'll zoom out all the way until we have 2013 at the left of the screen. So again, no drawings. There's only one moving average. It's the 55 simple. We have Bitcoin. We're looking all the way back to 2013 over here. And you'll see the relationship that Bitcoin has with the 55 simple and how it's a crucial level that dictates when we're in a confirmed bear market, as well as when we're in confirmation of re-entering a bull market. If I was to zoom in some more to the 2018 blow off top, which you can see right there, it's technically the 2017 blow off top, you'll see that Bitcoin closed below the 55 SMA, and then after it did for the first time, it came back up to it, gravitated back up to it, but then got rejected. And when this happens, you got this deeper correction. And then it took us a while actually to recover or reclaim it, but once we did, we held it on a back test, and the only reason we actually substantially traded below it was because of a black swan event, because of what happened with the C19 crash. But you see how when we got above it in this macro automatic rally, we were drawn back to it. Then after we recovered from the C19 crash, we held it for what, 4 months before continuing into the end of the cycle. Now I want to zoom in a little bit more, because look at what 2021 at the left of the screen. This is our double top cycle that we had in the last run. And you'll see the retest here of the 55 simple moving average. It's perfect right at the start of our lunar cycle. After the late May total lunar eclipse, Bitcoin crashed perfectly into the 55 SMA twice before bouncing up. And then look at how the bear market started. We broke below the 55 simple, gravitated back to it, and got rejected. And then we went deeper into the bear market, just like we did in the cycle before it. Now, since recovery, getting back into our new bull run, we have recently back tested the 55 SMA. After the March top, we came back to it and bounced. Of course, it's not a perfect touch. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're looking at crypto here, which has a ton of different data across different exchanges. Some exchanges will actually have us going even slightly below, some a little bit above. But generally, this index chart gives you an average of everything, and I believe that's close enough. Unless I was to super zoom in, you can see we perfectly kissed the 55 simple moving average on the weekly and bounced. So now, Bitcoin is trading well above the 55 SMA. This means that it pushes up about $1,000 after every weekly close. And we have another weekly close coming in later today. So I would expect this 55 to be like right around 71K after our weekly close, 71 to 72K. And that's actually the exact resistance that I just brought up a little bit ago that Bitcoin was facing for 8 months before we broke out into true price discovery in November 2024. So we could consider that the March lunar eclipse in about 6 weeks would put the 55 weekly simple moving average around 76K. So remember, 76. And if you watch my Year of the Snake Decoded, when I was at the section of the Leave the World Behind decode, you know all about the 76 connections that I was making tied to the city of Philadelphia and their team, the 76ers, and how the year Trump became president for the first time was also the year the Eagles won their first Super Bowl. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, who are also back in the Super Bowl this year, as Trump is now back in the Oval Office. So it's like a perfect script, right? Well, the day Trump won the election and the results officially came in, which were technically November 6th on the Bitcoin chart, because remember the Bitcoin daily closes somewhere around 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. Of course, it could fluctuate a little because of daylight savings and whatever. But when I zoom in, you're going to see it was November 6th that this breakout started. And when you look over here to the H, you're going to see when I hover right now, it says $76,000 Bitcoin. So the day that Bitcoin traded at 76K for the first time ever in its whole existence was on the day Trump won the election. I know, right? It's like, it's unbelievable. This was also the day that the CME gap that we were just looking at was formed. And this is also around where the weekly chart 55 SMA will be in mid-March. So we're talking all about this total lunar eclipse that's coming up in March and eclipse season, which is during the month of March. Now, I'm not saying it will play out exactly like this. That would be a very violent move to the downside very quickly, but we did see that move happen right here in May. And we have technical indicators in alignment with it too. So I'm not just giving you the esoteric stuff. I'm giving you technical analysis too to be combined with it. That's what we do here. So I'm just interpreting this code right now and applying it to the charts and revealing that Bitcoin trading under 80K within this year is a possibility, even with a push higher above 110K in the short term. So consider that from 120K Bitcoin on the spot chart down to 80K Bitcoin would be a total correction of around 33%. And that's what we just did last year. So we could confirm that it's possible. Obviously, what we would like to happen first, and I believe you all agree with me, is to see the market move up. We would all want to see Bitcoin and the altcoins push higher. So that's why, before we get back to the XRP decode, I want to point out something that's happened recently on the Bitcoin weekly chart. And this is another gem. We're going to turn off the 55 simple. We're going to add the 200 simple and the 200 exponential. And what we're talking about right now is this cross right here of the 200 EMA above the 200 SMA. It's very rare. It doesn't happen often. And to be 100% honest, there is unfortunately too little data for us to work with. But I do believe it's crucial to point out, because when we see patterns of Bitcoin, they do tend to repeat. Now, in November of 2020, you'll see right over here the cross where now this 200 EMA and SMA go from kissing each other, wound up tightly together, coiling up, and then finally with the 200 EMA above the 200 SMA by December 2020. Then we have this expansion in price and continuation into price discovery. And the best buying opportunity for Bitcoin is always below the 200 moving average. Then when we have the cycle before this one, we're looking back over here and we see something very similar happening, which again was actually around March into April of 2017. 200s kissing each other. And then once we had some noticeable separation, we had expansion and continuation in price discovery with the 200 EMA above the 200 simple. Now, this is all going to help you with XRP, by the way. This is all going to be providing you value for XRP. So for those of you that are in the midst of this XRP decode and you're wondering, why is he talking about Bitcoin? Well, because Bitcoin is Jupiter and it made Hermes. All right. There's mythology here. You need to understand why I was able to determine that XRP would not break above $2 until Bitcoin went into price discovery, regardless of what happened with the SEC case. That was something I stuck to for 2 years, and I got a lot of shit for it. But when it came true, well, now you see, Bitcoin is the energy that runs this market because it's Jupiter. It's the king of the gods of this market. And who's its father? Saturn, Satoshi. We'll get to that in a moment too. But the point that I'm making here is everything I'm talking about with Bitcoin and all these gems I'm giving you for Bitcoin are gonna provide you with even more value for your XRP investment. Trust me. Now, we have these couple of iterations where we have the 200 above the 200 EMA above the 200 simple, and that's what we're getting right now. Also, it's happening pretty much at the same exact time of year that it happened back in 2020. So we have the same signal, and we have those two moving averages looking identical compared to February 2021. And here we are 4 years later at the start of February 2025. So I'm talking about right around here. You see the amount that they're just starting to spread out from each other. Now, there's no exact science to what I'm about to show you, but once these two moving averages are over 10% apart from each other, then we could be approaching what I would believe is a top signal. When they're over 15% apart from each other, there's definitely a time to be cautious. And when they're 20% or more spread from each other, 200 simple and the 200 exponential, we're either in the process of topping out or we're already topping out and gearing up for a much more noticeable pullback. So save that gem for when we get to that phase. And as of today, these moving averages are only about 5% apart. Let me show you real quick. You could see this very clearly by just hovering over, and you'll see that the one at the top is at 46,300. We go to the one below, it's about 5%. That's, to me, very important to consider because we should have more room to go to continue further into price discovery. And of course, it shouldn't shock anyone that Bitcoin's seeing this resistance here at the most important psychological level in Bitcoin's history, 100K. And don't forget, Bitcoin's market cap is about, let me actually show you this real quick. Apologies, I'm getting a little glitch on my computer. But I think this will be really cool to bring up because there is a market cap conversation that perhaps a lot of you are already aware of, but many people don't really want to talk about. And it's about the market cap of where Bitcoin is in comparison to where we could be with XRP and the overall crypto market. Let me get to that. Perfect. Ooh, my computer is completely glitching out. This is unfortunate. Perfect timing, ain't it? I'll come up with a solution. I always do. No complaints. 1 second, family. Oh man, why is this happening? Very obnoxious. I'm really hopeful this will stop. I might have come up with a solution. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. We're looking over here to this market cap, and you can see that Bitcoin is $2 trillion right now. 2 trillion with a T. That's pretty big. It's already ranked 7th market cap in the world, just one rank below Amazon. Now let's transition over to XRP, but I just wanted to let you know a fun fact with XRP's current circulating supply. For it to hit Bitcoin's current market cap at 2 trillion, it would put XRP at $35 a coin. Imagine a $35 XRP. That would be wild. I could entertain a $30 XRP, but I believe Bitcoin would have to break above $250,000 per coin minimum for this to happen. If Bitcoin can hit 250K, I can entertain targets higher than $25 for XRP. And it would be amazing if that was the syncretism there. If it was like 250K Bitcoin and $25 XRP at the same time, would be mind-blowing considering it's the year of 25, the Hebrew year 5,785, 5 plus 7 plus 8 plus 5 equals 25. I went through all of this with the year of the snake decoded. We also have serpent in gematria giving you this 97. 97 is the 25th prime number. Yeah, so would be crazy if we could hit those 25s for this particular year. We already had XRP hit 250, but we're talking about much higher targets into what we're anticipating for price discovery, which I do believe the $20 zone is very, very possible in the year of 2025. But XRP's current market cap is only 176 billion. So where does that put it? In the 70s rank, probably? Where are we at, XRP? Oh, we're behind Palladium. So 97. Oh my God, how symbolic is that? I didn't even realize that. It's 97th rank. What we were just talking about SERP at 97 and the 25. That's fucked up. That's hilarious, though. That's how the code works, right? It's always like, yeah. Anywho, we have quite a ways to go, right? In order for us to see a jump from 176 billion XRP all the way up to 2 trillion to match the current market cap of Bitcoin would require a 1000% increase from today's XRP price to accomplish such a milestone, whilst the $2 trillion Bitcoin getting to a $5 trillion market cap, which would be if Bitcoin hit the 250K level, that would only be a 150% increase from here. But of course, consider that's just two assets that we're talking about to achieve this. The remaining $4.8 trillion that I just explored with you would have to come from somewhere, right? And we can't just leave Ethereum and Solana out of the conversation. And of course, we still have XLM and HBAR and many other projects, ISO 222 compliant tokens. So yeah, something really wild needs to happen for this type of money to enter the market. And I just don't see it coming from retail. I'm being 100% honest with you right now. This would have to come from governments and central banks. That's the only way. And consider that the entire crypto market cap right now is, I believe, 3.4 trillion. It's at 3.3 trillion. So for us to reach a $35 XRP and an equivalent move for Bitcoin, all things considered, which I believe is around a 250K Bitcoin minimum, we'd have to add everything we've accomplished in this industry over the past decade and then put some whipped cream on top of it, sprinkles, a cherry, 24 karat gold shavings, and eat it with a Rolls-Royce spoon. Should I keep going? Like, that's what we're talking about here. So yeah, we all need to consider these things when we hear outlandish upside targets being thrown around, and it's not because I believe these figures are impossible. Anything's possible in the matrix, but please know that's definitely not the case. It's not impossible. It's because we need a whole new system in order for these numbers to make any sense. Or the very negative thing is that we're dealing with wheelbarrow money like we did in the Weimar Republic. So sure, it's really cool to have a $35 XRP, but then you're paying, what, $7 a liter for petrol? That's right, 7 per liter, and what, 15 minimum per gallon in the US? I mean, if you ran the numbers based on the average prices at 7 euros per gallon, per liter, that would be over 25 per gallon in the US. So is that what we want? I don't think so. And a lot of people are going to say that those things that one doesn't have to happen for the other to happen. And I disagree, unless that money is printed hot off the press and just injected straight into the crypto market. It's not coming from retail. Trust me, it's just not. With what's going on right now on the world stage, retail doesn't have the money. Okay? So is this what I'm saying will happen? The Weimar Republic 2.0? I hope not. Prices of everywhere are already ridiculous. Just look at the food prices from 2020, right before the pandemic started, and compare it to today. It's wild. What is it, 194% increase on eggs, only up to 2023? So what has 2023 to 2025 been? It has to at least be 250 to 300% higher. And that's an everyday item that most people consume on a daily basis. Many foods include that as an ingredient too, whether it be processed foods or whole foods. So that's just one item. I remember seeing this one video that somebody made where they went into their Uber Eats app or their Walmart Plus account or something like this, and they found an order from 2020, and then they added the whole order to their cart again. I think it was sometime in the beginning of last year, and it was like a 450% increase of price. So again, where's retail getting that money from? It's not the same bull run that we had in 2021 is what I'm trying to say. And if we entertain much, 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 much higher prices, then we need what BlackRock is doing to happen again and again and again, many times over. And we also need the central banks playing the game. And it can't be esoteric anymore. It has to be the open conversation. And, funny thing to think about with prices, just so everyone's aware, I started my Patreon back in 2021 in the midst of the C19 crisis almost 4 years ago, and the mastermind community is the same price it is today as it was back then the day I launched it, and I intend to keep it that way. And anyone here can vouch for the fact that over the years, these podcasts and decodes I've released just got better and better, and I've only provided more and more value. And that's just the kind of creator I am. But the rest of the world is not really operating like that. I mean, I've even seen iTunes account or Apple membership, Spotify membership, Netflix. It's like all of those services are going up and up and up too. So I'm just saying that, and it's not so I seem like the hero here. It's just like I'm very much in the game of all of what's happening here, and I'm doing my best to avoid it too. But what could we do at this point? I think there needs to be this level of honesty for us all to grow and us all to understand what is 250k Bitcoin and a $35 XRP like across the whole conversation, right? What is gas cost? What is bread cost? What does all this stuff cost then? Just keep it in mind. I believe these conversations need to be had right now, especially with what Trump's doing with tariffs. We're going to see prices spike even higher over the coming months, and I believe this is all being done to systematically collapse the system on top of the heads of the middle class. And when that system collapses is when the new one will be ushered in, and then we'll likely see a true blockchain economy as a, quote, solution to the problem. And it'll likely go exactly how we anticipated it to go. More control, more tracking and tracing, 6G, the Internet of Things, wearables turning into injectables, and I could go on, but I'll stop. I don't think for a single second also that XRP and Ripple won't be a part of that new draconian order, because they're 100% absolutely involved. Same with Ethereum, Solana, and all the other ISO 222 compliant projects. It's all part of the system, and the apex predator used these nerds to build the system for them. And once that system is launched, they'll discard them just like they always do. And after they're done doing the dirty work, they just wipe the dust off their hands and they say, thank you, bye. Now, everyone wonders who Satoshi Nakamoto is. It's the entire blockchain economy, the entire blockchain ecosystem disguised as a pseudonym for a secretive individual. But the truth is, Satoshi is the blockchain world order. It's all of this stuff. Cardano, Bitcoin, all of it. Now let's wrap up this XRP decode by looking back at the 2017 market. We want a 2017 market back in March, April, and into late February, I believe, is also really powerful time frame to consider. So we have from February into mid-May, where we went absolutely parabolic. During this phase, XRP gained around 6,000% in only 2 months. Crazy, right? So with XRP having a very strong performance in the month of April historically, so I want you to keep that in mind, having a very strong performance in the month of April historically, this wouldn't shock me if Bitcoin was to break higher into the 120k zone. Then XRP will likely push above $5 and make it to around 7. And I know it seems very tough right now with how horrible this market looks, with Bitcoin correcting every single weekend. We could see what it's doing to the altcoins as Bitcoin gains dominance. That's all happening by design, by the way, guys. This is pretty much how moving into another phase of price discovery for Bitcoin goes. It just sucks all the liquidity away from all the altcoins, and then everyone starts panicking, and then Bitcoin pivots, and the rest is the cyclical nature of Bitcoin at play. Again, no new money is coming into this market, so where do you think Bitcoin needs to get it from? It becomes a vacuum cleaner right now, sucking up all the liquidity. And if Bitcoin did in fact roll over from that 120k level, and this brings down XRP to around where we're currently trading at around $3 or as deep as $2, this could be one of the most bullish moves in XRP's history, because it can play out like it did back here from March 2017 to May 2017, when XRP was quickly bought back up over here after the short-lived correction. So pay attention to right here, because this could very much be the move that XRP is making, heading into around $7. And then we have that correction come in like here. It's short-lived, and play-by-play would be pretty much exactly how we have Bitcoin roll over back its dominance. So I'll take this one step at a time so it's not confusing for you. We can have this whole push up even higher for XRP, but there needs to be something like this. And I think what we're doing right now with XRP is actually not the same as over here, even though it feels the same and the fibs are the same. The reason I don't think it's the same is because back here we had nothing to base it off of, but lately we haven't had price discovery for XRP in over 7 years. So we were talking about a much more immature market back then in comparison to today. And also no SEC case, none of that shit going on. This is completely like an infant at the time, right? Now, with this move up into May, that would be equivocal of like a $25 XRP in today's market. And that would be an almost $1.5 trillion market cap for XRP. So this is why, for me, it makes sense for a move like this to come later in the year and after a very dramatic shakeout in the middle. So I hope this resonates with you guys on like what I'm feeling about this particular move for Bitcoin right now. Couple of final notes on this. I do think a $20 XRP is in the cards for this cycle. I don't want people to forget that. My thesis stays the same. And apologies if I keep like getting distracted here because my screen is getting, it just keeps glitching on me. So I have a lot against me right now. I have my dual screen glitching, my internet's slow. It's like I'm doing everything I can to give you guys the best possible podcast, even with all these bananas thrown at me like I'm in like that Mario Kart. So the next move for Bitcoin pushing into 120, that right there would be in harmony with XRP getting into like the $7 territory, which by the way, Bitcoin hitting 120k is only like 25% from here. That would be like this move, and then we would have a sharp pullback with Bitcoin also having a sharp pullback, and then we would have that additional surge up for XRP into like the $15 to $20 zone. And that would make sense for August of this year, later in the year, not immediately right now. It's never been in the cards to have a $25 XRP that soon anyways, right? Like it's something that was about the overall top of the cycle. And with the way things are going right now, it's feeling like we have to make some moves soon, right? There needs to be something that kicks in soon. Back in 2021, the month that happened in was February. So I'm not just like throwing Hail Mary passes here. I feel like the environment we're in right now, where we're trading off the new moon, kind of bearish. It's very weird. Nobody's sure what's happening next. Just got through an FOMC meeting. All the shit happening with Trump and with like the world stage as a whole. It's very symbolic. And you want to know something else that I find interesting? When the 49ers lost the Super Bowl last year, that was the day Bitcoin started breaking out again. Kind of weird, right? Like we made it through the Super Bowl Sunday and we immediately rose up. And what was weird about last Sunday? It was as the finalists were like coming in for the upcoming Super Bowl. So like I believe it was the Chiefs game was on. Chiefs were kind of losing. And just that whole game is when the crypto market was very bearish. Now, I don't know if that's a coincidence, but I do find it to be very in our faces when Bitcoin was trading at 49K as the 49ers were losing the Super Bowl. And then once we finished up that Super Bowl, Joe Biden posts this really cryptic tweet with him and laser eyes. Like, what the fuck is going on, right? So wouldn't that be interesting if next Sunday we're up a little more, like we've recovered a little throughout this week, and we just chop into Sunday night, and then the moment the Super Bowl is over, the price releases. It would be so obvious and so scripted. Again, we'll have to touch base on that, and I'm not trying to go too woo-woo right now, but there's something to this theory. And between the 9th of February and the new moon is 3 total weeks. A lot can happen in crypto in 3 weeks, guys. We saw what happened over here for XRP. This is 4 days. This thing went up 600%. It's normal. We've seen, look right here. Let's go over 3 weeks. It's pretty much about the top. Went over 1,000%. Like, I'm not making this shit up. This actually happened in real life. A lot could happen in crypto in 3 weeks. So again, keep that in mind. Now, if this was to occur, the move up to 120 and then correction, that would be where I believe we'll see that noticeable flood of liquidity into the altcoins. And when we go over to the Bitcoin dominance chart, which was something that I started talking about a little bit earlier. Yeah, Bitcoin dominance is just going to keep going up as we correct this classic fuckery going on in the crypto market right now. So we're about 60% dominance for Bitcoin. And I want to point out this moment right over here. I'm going to turn off these moving averages. You see this sharp decline and then launch into what was the highest our dominance has been ever since. And then it cratered. Well, that move right there, we saw after that about a 20% rise in a month. I believe it was like maybe 15% exactly. 15 to 20%. Doesn't really matter. For dominance, that's a huge move. And then look at how it crashed over the next 130 days or so. A 50% correction for Bitcoin dominance. And this was your alt season. As you can see, this crack right there, it happened around April, and then we had most of the alts topping in May. Well, we've been in an uptrend for Bitcoin dominance. Dominance keeps going up as Bitcoin continues to also go up, and we haven't seen Ethereum break into all-time highs yet, right? So we're still in a discounted zone for crypto, which is another reason why it feels like we're getting very close, like on the brink of the next major move. Well, funny enough, like, when all of this started to transpire was after a big correction that was going on in the month of January for Bitcoin back in 2021. And then we started moving higher into February, March, and April. And that was all of this decline. So I feel like we're right here. You see this V-shaped recovery that we got in this dip into November? I feel like that was the exact same thing we just did in December. I think it's the same. So the technical target for Bitcoin dominance, if I was to share that with you, is going to be around 64%. It's right here at the 786, the golden pocket. Call it 64 to 66. And I personally don't think we can go higher than 66 unless there's an insane development that hits the world stage, like the US making Bitcoin a strategic reserve, for instance. But then with that news, it'll likely be what causes the push into the technical target of 64 to 66% anyways, especially since the entire crypto market would become bullish from news like that. It wouldn't just be an isolated success for Bitcoin. It would feel like a win for the whole crypto industry, no different from Bitcoin ETF being approved. So it wouldn't be isolated in the way dominance moves. That's why I don't think we'll shoot much higher, even with Bitcoin being selected to be that. Not saying it will happen, by the way, and I'm not saying I agree with that at all either. I'm just letting you know. They like using the news, right? We know that. And another similar situation would be if the US decided to get rid of capital gains on crypto, which I've heard many people mention could happen for US-based crypto companies, but I just don't exactly understand how Bitcoin would fit into that, considering what it is. It's not like tied back to any particular corporation or company exoterically. So like, what would they do about that? And also that's somewhat of like a conspiracy, like coming from the Trump campaign, even though I believe it's one of Trump's sons did tweet about it or something like that, but that has nothing to do with like actual real life truth, right? Like anyone could tweet anything. Elon Musk can tweet that, we landed on the moon today, and everyone would believe it, and that would be like some CGI fucking video they made in Hollywood, and it would still pass, right? It doesn't mean it's reality. So anywho, I'm not trying to go there right now, but I think it's important that what you read on a tweet isn't necessarily 100% the truth. We saw this happening with the Bitcoin ETF leading into the official ETF launch, and it was creating a lot of shakeouts along the way whenever we found out it was fake. So, yeah. Now, also, could the exchanges have a system in place to even do such a thing, where they could only trigger capital gains on non-US related? It just seems kind of complicated. I guess we'll have to wait and see, but all in all, I'm not banking on any of these things. I never designed my investment thesis around the what ifs, and no sophisticated investor would advise to sit around and wait for these sorts of things either, especially during times of euphoria, because greed will make you do stupid stuff with money. So what I'm saying here is, if we were to start breaking out for Bitcoin, and there was to be some positive news tied to it, well, you got to kind of consider that's usually what leads us to tops. And that's dangerous, right? So if they start saying that Bitcoin's chosen as a strategic reserve and then we pump and then we get higher to like 120, 125K or something like that, maybe even 115, and then they're going to come out with news where it's like, and then we'll get rid of capital gains taxes on, that would be like too good to be true. And then you'll see the market correct off of that. It's always how they design this shit. We've seen it happen enough times in history. And if you study the S&P 500 and all the news tied to specific events with that throughout the years and several different presidencies, whether it's Republican or Democrat, you'll know what I mean. So when everyone starts going in the same direction, maybe you should pause and turn the other way and not follow the masses, right? Now let's check in with the XRP chart and do some traditional analysis to see the setup for this month of February we just moved into. And then we'll get to the altcoins. As I said, I wanted to make this the XRP special and focus on the decode of that. So here we are. Very sketchy to see this daily close lower. Still technically more daily closes above $3 than we had at daily closes above $2 back in 2018. So the way that this is falling right now is very much the way Bitcoin was falling after new moons all throughout 2024 last year. This type of energy that we've been getting where we have a new moon, you see that, and then the correction. New moon, correction. Here we topped on the new moon, correction. Here we corrected into the new moon, popped out. That was definitely an interesting pivot point for specifically XRP, but it did not go that way for everything else. Here we have a new moon correction, new moon correction, new moon correction, new moon correction again and again and again. Okay, so I'm not just pulling this shit out of nowhere. We're doing what we've been doing. And I guess that'll make some people feel a little bit more positive right now, even though that's not what I'm trying to do. Let's get to the monthly and see what's going on there. We have just kind of started a fresh year, so we don't have any bi-monthly, 3-month, or 4 months to worry about. We do have an epic candle for the month of January, though. 46% for XRP. Where are we at with the RSI? We have an RSI of 84 on the monthly, which is pretty fucking high, but we can see some reads that are way higher. Over here specifically, we got to 95, 2 months in a row, and then we ended off with a 94. So we can get probably above the 90s. If we do on the monthly, I would call that the top. It's very much common with Bitcoin too. When we get very overheated on the monthly RSI, starting to approach 85 and higher, yeah, it's time to close shop. But the crazy thing is if XRP was to correct from here and have that correction like it did back in 2017, which I'll show you really quickly. Again, I knew this would take forever to load. I'll need to figure out that hopefully for next week. But yeah, you see this move right here? If we were to do that, it would be basically back testing the golden pocket, which that's a little too much. That would be like a full correction down to $2 from what I remember. Let me pull it up right over here and see. Even lower, yeah, that would be nuts. You see it's matched up over here where we had this move and then we did come back down to this 786, but our structure doesn't look the same anymore. We had this move and then we pumped higher and we would be kind of here right now, right? Why to entertain right now a correction all the way down to 150? That's why I'm thinking this setup is totally brand new. Like we're already in price discovery for XRP and it's a healthier looking price discovery. But it would be hilarious if we were to chop in this pattern and then set to release after the start of the lunar cycle, which I'm not saying is exactly how it would go, but XRP is not following the lunar cycle and the solar cycle. It follows Bitcoin, which follows the lunar cycle and the solar cycle, but it's not the same sort of analysis. What XRP does is these Bart Simpson heads over and over and over again, these distributional tops. You know, here's a perfect example. We had a much bigger one over here. We had one with the December time frame for the start of the SEC case. We had one that came in before it. This is what XRP likes to do, these distributional tops, Bart Simpson heads. That is what we are hoping doesn't happen this time around. And with that breakout that we just had, it made it look a lot more promising because it didn't have that 50-day, you know, shakeout to the downside. So the fact that we have a typically good February into March and April for XRP means that we could very well be pushing up very soon. It's just going to take some relief for the crypto market. And we're not getting that right now. So, but still, I mean, if we looked back at where XRP was before November, it was 50 cents. And it was just $3 like a couple of days ago, right? So nothing to get too worried about until we actually start breaking structure, which will be below $2. So as long as we can hold that level, I believe it's kind of synchronized with with a Bitcoin holding 97K. Bitcoin can't hold 97K. Like if we just break down through that on our weekly close, that'll be wild. The fact that retail is pushing this market this much right now, you know? I mean, again, they trapped everyone in with this Trump coin bullshit. I was telling people, like, you heard me worried about it when I was decoding that. Yes, it pushed higher, but right now it's lower than it was the day that I released that podcast, which was right leading up into the inauguration day. So they trapped so many new investors into the market with that. Not safe, you know, no idea of how to invest, no investment thesis. And since the inauguration, that thing's 70% down. I believe it's 75% down. Like, nuts. Absolutely nuts that they trapped everyone in that the way they did. But it got a lot of attention into crypto, and I think that was all done by design. They knew they wanted to push the market down so they could acquire more Bitcoin and they could acquire more of our altcoins, and that's what the market maker has to do. It's just, we've been here before, guys. So looking at the XRP analysis, this does look a little shaky now. We're starting to break through our supports, and we do need to pull up quick. I do believe, though, that we probably have some micro TA to analyze. We might have hit this 1618. Yeah, we did. Yep, we're pretty much there. So the move off of the golden pocket could very well be in the cards if we continue to slide into Monday, which is what we did last week. So that would be somewhere around 250, and then it would pop higher. If we start to break below 250, you're looking at a double bottom, which is a pushback to 2. Again, going to be very, very sketchy. It's going to be very shady for new investors. And it'd be interesting to know the overall sentiment right now from like crypto analysts, the people that are looking at this market, because when we looked at the 1965 year, the year of the wood snake, we corrected into the first week of February. So is that just the play? And it's the perfect kind of snake year play that we had in 1965. And then we saw what happened after that. We moved up into March. We actually moved all the way up into May. Maybe for altcoins, that's a possibility. For Bitcoin, that would be strange, unless Bitcoin has that major correction in March into April, which I already talked with you about. I also brought it up when we did last week's podcast, that if we were to get a 30% correction for Bitcoin into the start of our lunar cycle, then sure, we could V-shape recover and move higher after that, because that was all we were waiting on anyways, was a major shakeout. Right now, we're not having a major shakeout. We pretty much have Bitcoin just chopping around the same fucking levels it's been at since mid-November, so it's not really the end of the world. If Bitcoin was to start closing below 91K, that would be tough. That would definitely be tough. So let's look at the monthly. Looks pretty damn good for XRP. Nothing really to complain about here. The bi-weekly is not horrible. I mean, it's not like reversal vibes at all. Let's look at the weekly. The weekly is definitely going to feel like we're topping with that last candle. Not necessarily the worst candle structure either. It's not like a gravestone doji or something. So yeah, we're pretty much just probably overheated. The fact that the RSI on the monthly got that high up that quickly, we broke out in a straight line from November, right? So very unhealthy breakout, and that's what XRP does, man. And that's why whenever I'm doing TA on it, I'm so calm and I don't really react happily to any pumps, because it's just like, it's always too fast too soon. It's always dramatic like that. And then we have those Bart Simpson head breakdowns, which is horrible. I wish it would change. So far it looks like it's kind of changing, but yeah, we were sideways for what, a month, and then broke out again. If we were to keep repeating this pattern, we'd pretty much be moving by, yeah, the week after the Super Bowl, the week immediately following the Super Bowl. if we are to have the same structure. We're in the midst of this right now. Let me look at where the new moon was, which was the fucking new moon. Yeah, okay, whatever. It's amazing how bearish new moons, post new moon time frame has been for crypto. It's definitely been a noticeable pattern this year. All right, let's look at finish it off with the daily. Let's just see where our moving averages are, and then we really need to move on. We've started to close below the 21, and we're back on the 34 EMA, which we did test here in a couple of days before Christmas. And then also we had this kind of double bottom situation where we arduously traded down into the 34. We closed below it temporarily, which is typically a very bearish sign, but after you explode so high in a straight line, it's not the end of the world to trade below a lagging indicator. But we are pretty much there right now, so we'll see if this is a repeat of the fractal that we had back in December moving into January, as we kind of do feel like that vibe with matching up with the Black Moon, and then also this Chinese New Year and the week following the new moon. Be fascinating too if it pivots in the same way, where if midweek, you know, like sometime like the 5th, 6th of February, if we start to pop back up and recover, and then yeah, like the real release of energy is after the Super Bowl. Let's see. Going over to quick Bitcoin analysis, because we had not really touched on that. We are now below this reverse firmament dome. But yeah, this doesn't matter really. It's just kind of fun TA. This shit doesn't matter as much as the horizontal trading ranges. So we've now popped up over the 1618, and we started to build some structure in the higher end of this trading range. But the fact that we're getting below the 34 on a weekend day, it doesn't really convince me too much. Like if we start doing that on a weekday, then I would say, okay, this is not the best thing to have occurring. But we're pretty much trading at what was the resistance in November. So in late November, when we had the first pulse, we were treating this 99 100K level as a resistance pretty much until here, until January 16th. Now, why do I say that? Well, it was because a majority of our time trading below it, we couldn't really hold it. We had this short-lived moment here. We had one daily close here, and then we've recently just popped above it and been holding it really nicely. So that's a good sign, right? Obviously, 106K is our main level. So until we could break 106K, we have to deal with that as the major resistance. I'm not convinced that this is the top right now. I'm just not. And even if we were to pull back down to our key support at 92K, I'm not convinced that this is the top. Too weird for it to happen like that. And I know the New World Order, they always want to like kind of shock you. They always want to give you something confusing, but it'd be too strange. I said the same thing a couple of red pills ago, and we started to pulse up after that into the inauguration. It felt the same weird way last week with this sell-off into the weekend. We're getting another sell-off into the weekend. It's just like, when are they going to give up, right? They're doing everything in their power to keep this market down, and for some reason, we just continue to recover. That was a lot of the case back here in this trading range. The only thing I would not want is for us to build a broad trading range like we did over here. A part of me feels like that might be the case though, because we need the money to come from somewhere. So even if Bitcoin was to push into 120 and then go right back to like 77, 76, yeah, that would be widening that horizontal trading range. And I guess ultimately we could keep our eye on this major trend line right here as a potential backtest. You could see this trading, this green trend line, it started forming at the very bottom of our bear market. And we just continued to come back to it all throughout even last year. And for March or like April, it's at 80. For late March, it's at 77, 76. So again, rip the Band-Aid off, but I don't think it's now. I think it's likely after March or in March. We also have February, typically a decent month. March, mixed bag. April, one of our best performing months. So if we were to get that correction in March, it wouldn't shock me if we had a similar April, just because the more you get pulled down, the more room you have for recovery. That's why that data is very skewed for April, even though we topped in April 2021. So not too much to say about Bitcoin. We're just range bound. let's go over to quick words on ETH. A lot of people were getting excited about ETH. What did it make it up to? 3,500 and then another rejection. So this has been boring, right? It's just continually chopping to the downside. Pumps and then rejection. It's very much feeling like we're on the edge of a breakout. You know, like this is the exact way that it went back in 2021 too. When I studied the charts of 2017, it was just so much like shakeout, 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 and downside energy. And then out of nowhere, we pivoted and broke out in a straight line. I mean, look at right here. This immediate reversal. Fucking wild. You know, the same thing over here in this pivot of May. Shakeout, shakeout. Look, it's the fucking same structure. Top, shakeouts, lower, lower, and then once we hit a point of critical mass, it was a pivot. Where's the RSI there? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the fucking same. Let me look. RSI 37. We're 42 right now, but we were 40 last week. Made it to 36 on January 13th, the full moon of January, wolf moon. It's a pretty similar structure, man. Big resistance for ETH and can't really provide any updates unless we concretely break from that 888 fib up there at 4,000. So that's going to stay the same. Can't really update too much more. Now we're looking over to Pyth network, I believe. First time ever looking at this, so this will be interesting. Kind of in like a major triple bottom, but this chart history is quite new. We only have one total year of chart history. Let me just draw out some horizontal levels to keep in mind. We're clearly at support. You can't call it anything else. Really harsh shakeout from December. We're down 54%. A lot of altcoins are doing this lately. Let's pull another level up here. We know we want to catch as many levels as we can on the horizontal side, and then we'll pull a fib. All right, so we got stuffed out at the 0.5 fib. That's common for what's called a dead cat bounce, which you don't want. A dead cat bounce would be after this sharp decline, you get to the 0.5 and then you get rejected and you come down even lower. Now, if that was to occur, which I'm not saying it will, then this Pyth network will be in price discovery to the downside. And thus far, it's actually just been holding support and it's had a decent run up into March like everything else. Thus far, it's down 77%. So this almost feels like a bull run was already completed. And if we were to look at this from the Wyckoff method, this would be a buying climax. This would be your selling climax. This would be your automatic rally. And you are kind of moving into a spring right now, which is like the worst of the worst, especially after you have this mid-cycle run up. So we need a bounce soon because we're at the bottom. And the bounce brings you into what's called the test. So if this can happen sooner, then you could actually go back up to the same level you got rejected at. I don't think it'll go much higher now unless we do have a full-blown alt season. And what could happen here is you can chop and then you have your actual rally later in the year, like into August, for instance, where this will be your backup phase after an SOS. So it would look like this. Maybe we're lucky in this and it goes like that. So you'd have your SOS, sign of strength. You'd have your backup phase with some like kind of inverse head and shoulders pattern is very typical. And then you would bounce out of it and things will get probably much more exciting later in the year. But for right now, yeah, this is draining. Definitely in the oversold department. So if you're somebody who's interested in this project, then obviously be careful because we're in the potential move to a spring much deeper and we never know what could happen with this crypto market right now. It's very volatile. And obviously Bitcoin is regaining dominance. It's about to probably get even more dominant and that'll make altcoins feel very, very weird. But this, because it's so down, it will move back up too. Like everything else, everything moves up in an alt season. Doesn't even have to be like a good investment, doesn't have to be good technology, no partnerships, none of that. Recovery here is about 350%. So I'm personally going to hold off. I don't think I'll be making any new investments in this market during this time because I've already been packing my bags since 2023. Done. I had my fun back 2 years ago when it was much more discounted. A lot of things still do look discounted, don't get me wrong, but personally, this market's just been long overdue to pump, actually move into true alt season. Wow. Orchid is pretty much at the flash crash levels of the March C19 crash, right? This is where Bitcoin was like $4,000. And now it's still the same price 1,800 days later. And Bitcoin is almost 100K as I record this. So this has made no progress. It's also lost 95% of its value, which is very normal. We could confirm the top on this because we had 1, 2, 3, 4 pulses. So it's a very, very strong level here at the 888, 70 cents. I'd be fascinated to see if there's any, what's it called, helium. Got that 68 H&T. Got that 74 H&T. It also has the 68 and the 24 and like a lot of connections to the stuff we were talking about earlier. OXT. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm talking about Orchid. Apologies. What the hell am I doing? Sorry, guys. Again, I'm glitching out over here. OXT. I'm looking at something else. Apologies. Yeah, I was about to say, what the fuck am I talking about? So you have the 1/6, 1 plus 6 is 7. Cool. The 59 is at the 17th prime. Yes, it sure is. So we got the 7, because remember 17 is the 7th prime, and we have the 16, 1 plus 6 equals 7. I keep like wanting to write helium for some weird reason. Okay. Okay, lots of 8s too. Very interesting. God, you guys wouldn't believe what I'm dealing with here with my setup. It's like the worst, probably the most glitches and problems I've had in a red pill ever. And of course it's red pill 201, like event 201, that fucking bullshit they did to us. Maybe that's the reason. Am I like reaching right now? Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, yeah, 70 cents is big. I'm not sure if there's been any changes in this token dilution or whatever these shit coins tend to do. No offense. But yeah, this is pretty rough. I would say that sure, like you do have room for recovery on this one, but it's one of those trader opportunities where it's like you pop in for a trade and then you get rid of everything. This is not a long-term hold. It's never proven to be. It's kind of launched into the C19 crash and it's still trading at the same prices as it was on the C19 crash. So not very convincing chart to put a bunch of money into and just hope for the best when there's plenty of other options. And I'm not necessarily bearish on this particular project. I'm just letting you know neutrally how I feel about the chart that I'm looking at. Maybe not the greatest opportunity, and yeah, still just chopping below the 382. It means that it has opportunity, but it doesn't show that it's had any strength all throughout this bear market, which has been perpetual since 2022 for this coin. So yeah, maybe something to just consider. Right now we're looking at helium. Apologies on that before. We're actually looking at helium now we got a little bit of a different picture, right? We lost a lot of the value immediately, 98%, and then a nice recovery into a textbook automatic rally, 800%, gorgeous. We have the yeah, so you see 20. Yeah, like I mean, if you bought this at all in 2020, like it would have been like buying at the bear market. So it came all the way back to the backup phase levels of around $1.15, but still a lot of chop here. Now that it's gotten to this resistance level at 10. I don't know the last time I looked at this shit, but very nice. I got that key level of around 10. Let me show you now. I'm just going to expand it a little bit more and it'll make so much sense. Like 960. It's a fucker, isn't it? We have here popping above it. Chop, chop, chop. You see 4 nice retests before bouncing into the final phase of the bull run, the buying climax. came back to it, messed around a little bit there and said, it's not going to work, and then cratered down to $1. But then after this AR coming back to these same levels, it's proof that it's an important level. And now that we've came back to it yet again with another big rejection is huge. So what are we looking at now? 40. Ooh, yeah, this is becoming normal in crypto, isn't it? A 60% mid-cycle correction. And what are we working with to the upside? Ooh, okay, not so bad, not so bad. Fucking, there we go. 1,000% move from here just to get back to all-time highs. And we do have the 55, which is the Satoshi number. So where are we at on helium? Now that we're looking at this, yeah, fucking that makes sense because we got the 24. It's tied back to Satoshi 24 in the same cipher. We have Satoshi Nakamoto giving you 55 in multiple ciphers. This thing hit the all-time high of $55. We have helium. God, I don't know how I'm able to still do this. 47 tied to Trump, 47th president, could definitely be something to consider for this year. Also, got the 38, 3 8s, 888 equals 24, the same thing as what we just looked at a second ago. H&T 42, that's the mirror of 24. We got another one, 15 tied to the snake. Sorry, that's not accurate. The 14, we have H&T giving you the 14 in Chaldean tied to the snake. Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun? Got that 68, 32, all these ties back to XRP. So now that's making so much more sense, because when I was looking at the Orchid chart before, I was like, what the fuck? You know, but this is much more in alignment with what I was getting with the snake concept for XRP. And I believe Helium's logo is Jupiter. And it's purple too, which is like the Jupiter color too. You know, the Helium, like violet, whatever you want to call this, grape purple, purple drink purple. I think that Helium logo is the Saturn logo too. If you can see it, you'll see it. But yeah, that's not bad. Got about 1,000% move up to just get to prior all-time highs. And to get to that like $40 level is almost 1,000%. So fuck, right? Like that's a venture capital opportunity in my opinion. Development and progress in the chart over time, lost an exaggerated amount of value, popped up quite a bit, has had 2 major moves to the same level. So it's just about like breaking through this resistance, and the fact that it's so oversold right now and hasn't gotten back into the territory of prior all-time highs, to me is a buy. So it's a decent investment opportunity, I guess, right now. Not financial advice. We're looking at Engine Coin. Ooh, mama me. All right, this thing is just going. It's just not able to recover, is it? Wow. Wowie zowie. Oh, it went lower into July. Yeah, like guys, when I react this way, like I reacted the same way to a lot of projects throughout the past 20 red pills, like where it's just like going lower, and then yes, you know, it pops 1,000% after. It's like, well, that's what it does after it loses all of its value. Like, this isn't looking great, but we're pretty much at the brink of this stuff where it's like, how much more could it give back? You know what I'm saying? So again, it's the worst when people are like, oh, Waters said this project doesn't look good, but it went up. It's like, bro, everything goes up. We're in fucking crypto. And then everything also goes down. We're in crypto. Everything needs to go up and down. It's because some people buy it and some people sell it, right? That's how this works. So when it pops up a bunch, you know, like, and people start ganging up about that, it's like, well, we're in a crypto bull run. When you see things like this, though, like this project is fucking 97% down still, trading near the lows that were coming in from September, October. It's made 0 progress to the upside. So I guess the good thing to say about this is these trend lines have been working out pretty damn nicely for those who are interested in this project. We'll see right here what I mean. Turn this off. We've had these come back and retested as a support after it was a resistance throughout the falling phase of the bear market, and now we're right back to the same levels that we were in 2017, 2018. You see, this is not great. But then we hit the new year of 2021 and it popped up in a straight line from the same level. If I was to tell you it went up 3,000 fucking % in 84 days, that would be like, Waters, you said it was not a good looking chart and then it went up this. It's like, yeah, well, because it looks like shit before it pivots. That's just how these things work. I'm gonna wrap this up here. You know, this was a long podcast. Be careful on stuff like this, you know, and when you hear me make negative comments, it's not me saying that it's impossible for this thing to go up. It'll all go up if Bitcoin goes up. That's the magic of crypto. We need Bitcoin to enter its next phase of price discovery, and then we need Bitcoin dominance to collapse and roll over and go into the altcoins, and then you'll see everything have this moment, which is why this thing had this moment back in 2021. No other reason. It was because Bitcoin gave up all of its liquidity to the alt market, and the alt market had a fiesta. So we're on the brink of that occurring. It's another bearish weekend in the matrix. I personally am not shaken out right now. As long as we're holding our levels, we can definitely say that it doesn't feel great when we're getting closer and closer to this upcoming lunar eclipse in the lunar cycle. I totally understand any pain anyone's feeling, but again, most people that are feeling that pain are likely new investors. So you have to learn what this feels like, just like we learned back in 2021, and just like some people learned back in 2016 to 2017. And there was people that were OGs in this market back in 2013 that had to feel the pain of major moves like that in the crypto market. So if you're new here, take this as an experience to learn emotional control and develop your investment thesis more. And in the meantime, I'll be revealing more information as we go, but for right now, I feel like I packed this with as much information as humanly possible. I have this little like intuitive feeling that we need to get through the Super Bowl actually to have that repeat like we did last year, but I think that was also the case back in 2021 too. Right when the Super Bowl was wrapped up, we started moving higher again. So we'll see. But anyways, I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you're all having an amazing rest of your weekend in the Matrix, and I'll have a new update coming out in a couple days to recap everything once the traditional markets have reopened. Appreciate every single one of you. Much love.